Hello, dreamers and wanderers of imagination. Do you ever wonder what happens if the sky itself decides to rewrite the rules we thought were permanent? If one quiet night, while the world is busy with sleep, something begins to move through the dark, not a threat, not a promise, just an unknown that hums like an unanswered question. Tonight, we drift into the hush between stars and numbers, a story about a comet that wasn't supposed to exist. So, before we dive back in, take a second to like and subscribe to the video, only if you're patient enough to enjoy our story tonight. And if you think more people should know this story, you know what to do. Share it with the dreamers, the wanderers, the ones who stay up just to listen to what the universe might be whispering. Tell me too, are you listening before bed, while working, or somewhere in the world I can only imagine? And don't forget to post your location and local time, as if we're all gathered around one shared midnight campfire. Now, dim the lights. Let's ease into tonight's journey together. You first hear about it in passing, a comet, newly found, glowing faintly in the southern sky. It's small news, the kind that hides in the corner of a morning headline between politics and weather. Atlas telescope spots a possible interstellar object, the article says. Another frozen traveler from somewhere else. Nothing new. But there's a tone in the scientist's quote, a kind of hesitation wrapped in professionalism. You read it twice and feel it before you understand it. Its motion, she says, is interesting. You close the tab. You don't know it yet, but that word, interesting, will become the understatement of the century. At first, 3I Atlas is just another faint blur moving against the star field. It doesn't even make headlines. The world has seen comets before, after all. We've watched them burn, fragment, and vanish into memory. But this one has a calmness to it, as if it's not falling but choosing where to go. Astronomers at Cerro Tololo in Chile spend their nights tracking it, mapping its path against the backdrop of constellations that have never changed, until now. They note its orbit, nearly flat, almost deliberate, slicing backward across the solar plane. Retrograde, precise, patient. Someone calls it the first tidy comet they've ever seen. And then, without warning, the brightness doubles. A normal comet should brighten as it nears the sun. Yes, but Atlas is still far out, too far for heat to matter. Its coma blooms like breath on glass, glowing with a pale blue hue unseen in any catalog. The light flickers, not randomly but rhythmically, a pulse, faint and steady, every 81 seconds, a curiosity, then a pattern, then a question. You sit awake later that night scrolling through telescope feeds. The image data looks like snow, just noise to most eyes. But once you see the rhythm, you can't unsee it. Flash, pause, flash, pause. Like a heartbeat, too slow to be human, too steady to be random. You imagine the astronomers in their quiet domes, faces half lit by the glow of monitors, their coffee cooling while they lean closer, listening not with ears, but with attention. Someone must have whispered it aloud at some point. What if it's trying to tell us something? The world doesn't care yet. News moves quickly. The public forgets faster. But among scientists, sleepless conversations begin to form like dust trails behind an invisible nucleus. A physicist in Geneva emails a colleague in Tokyo. A thread begins. 3I Atlas behavior. Request independent data. Within a week, the community is buzzing quietly. the way ants do when something touches the edge of their map. By the end of the month, the comet's acceleration no longer fits any model. It's not drifting under gravity. It's pushing itself faintly, as though a hidden engine were nudging it forward. Solar wind? Impossible. Gas jets? None detected. Coincidence? Not for 3 consecutive rotations. You lie in bed that night, eyes open to the faint gray of ceiling shadows, and think of how fragile the word impossible really is. At 3 a.m., you step onto the balcony. The city is asleep. The air smells like dust and late summer. Somewhere above, invisible to you, that comet is sliding silently through the black. You try to picture it, a shard of ancient ice from a star you'll never see, tumbling through the void, carrying within it the fingerprints of forgotten systems. But the more you imagine, the more it feels like you're the one being watched. A small, rational fear tugs at the back of your thoughts. The fear every human has felt at least once when standing in a strange place alone, that instinctive sense of being seen by something you cannot name. You shake it off, but it lingers, subtle as static. The next morning, social media catches on. Someone posts a time-lapse, the comet's pulse sped up and looped over eerie ambient music. Space heartbeat, they call it. The video hits 1 million views before lunch. Most people scroll past, thinking it's just pretty. Another cosmic spectacle among endless distractions. But a few notice something. The intervals between flashes aren't perfectly even. There's a slight variance. One bright pulse longer than the rest, then 2 short, then one more long. It looks almost like a code. You stare at the looping video longer than you mean to. You tell yourself it's nothing. Human brains love patterns. That's all this is. You close the app. Still, you find yourself counting under your breath. Long, short, short, long. It keeps you company all day. By the end of the week, 3i Atlas has a nickname, the Thinking Comet. Journalists love that kind of thing. Memes follow, then documentaries, then debates. Scientists groan, philosophers write essays, conspiracy forums explode. You think it's funny at first, until the observatory in Chile releases a spectral analysis. The comet's emissions show an impossible ratio. Carbon dioxide to water ice nearly 10 times higher than any other comet ever recorded. It's producing more exhaust than it should, and none of it fits the known physics of sublimation. A professor explains on camera, it's as if something inside it were choosing to release energy, like an internal rhythm, not a reaction. You feel the small hairs on your arm rise. The headlines grow stranger. Comet's CO2 output defies distance. Mathematical models break down. Something is guiding Atlas, and under each article the same comment repeats like an echo. We've seen a black swan. You don't know the term yet. Not really, but you'll learn. A black swan is an event that changes everything, something you can't predict until it happens, and then it makes perfect, terrifying sense in hindsight. As you close your eyes that night, you picture the sky as a calm lake, and somewhere far beyond the ripples of light and time, something moves just beneath the surface. Something rare, something deliberate, and you will be fully surprised by what happens next. Morning finds you slower than usual, like a dream that refuses to end even after your eyes open. The city hums its ordinary song, traffic sighs. Birds argue, someone drags a trash bin down the sidewalk, but something underneath feels slightly off-key. Maybe it's you, maybe it's the planet. You check the news again before coffee, though you tell yourself you won't. The comet sits on the front page of 3 science sites now. The tone is still polite. still pretending to be calm, but the words have started to sweat. Unexpected acceleration persists. Outgassing inconsistent with models. Researchers request additional observation time. Buried halfway down one article is a sentence you can't unsee. There is no known force consistent with this motion. You reread it twice. The words feel like a hairline crack in the wall of everything you've ever trusted to stay still. You sip cold coffee and realize you're stalling for normality. It doesn't arrive. That night, the first of the citizen telescopes catches something odd. The coma, that gauzy veil of dust and vapor, is flickering, but not randomly. When the video is sped up, the light blooms and dims like breathing. You watch the footage on repeat until your laptop screen feels warm against your palms. It's hypnotic, that rhythm. Not frantic, not even mechanical. A long inhale, a pause, a sigh of light. Over and over. A scientist on a live feed explains it away with exhaustion-sharpened precision. Localized CO2 jets interacting with rotational variance. Then he pauses, rubs his face, and adds softer, though I've never seen a jet behave that symmetrically before. You catch that small break in his voice, that thin fracture where certainty used to live, and it unsettles you more than any headline could. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like if the universe itself hesitated mid-sentence? A friend sends you a meme later. The comet wearing sunglasses, captioned, "Catch me accelerating, can't explain why." You laugh because humor is armor, but the laughter tastes like metal. That night you can't sleep. You scroll through raw observatory data uploaded by enthusiasts. Faint graphs, pixel noise, the occasional burst of clarity. It feels almost like listening to static for meaning. You think about how much of life is exactly that, noise waiting for a pattern to declare itself. At 2:47 a.m., you pause one graph mid-scroll. The peaks form a pattern that looks like your heartbeat on a monitor. You know it's coincidence. You know you're tired. And yet, you find yourself touching the screen gently, as if the curve might answer back. By dawn, social media has given the comet a second nickname, the pulse. Someone overlays its brightness rhythm with ambient music and uploads it to streaming platforms. Millions listen to the song of Atlas while they work, sleep, or cry without knowing why. One commenter writes, "It feels like the sky is breathing with me." You try it once. The sound is soft, almost oceanic, a low hum layered with slow percussion and faint static. You close your eyes and let it wash through you. For a moment, everything lines up. Your breath, the hum, the distant memory of waves. And then, somewhere deep in the audio, you hear it. A click, a double beat, silence, another click. A code? Maybe just interference. But you open your eyes, heart suddenly heavy with the same unease that comes when you realize the dark corner of your room isn't empty after all. It's just been patient. Weeks pass, and the world learns to live with the comet. It becomes background noise to global headlines. Stock markets ignore it. Weather channels joke about interstellar visitors. But in quiet observatories and university basements, the arguments grow louder. Every model fails. Every explanation collapses under new data. The acceleration isn't random. It's steady, almost guided. And the gas jets? They seem to pulse in sequences that repeat every 11 hours. The exact time it takes Atlas to rotate once. Rotation-locked outgassing, one paper claims. Non-gravitational self-propulsion, another admits reluctantly. In one late-night symposium stream, A young researcher leans into her microphone, eyes red from lack of sleep, and says the thing no one wants to hear aloud. It's behaving like a probe adjusting course. The room goes silent. You think of that word, probe. It hangs in the mind like static before lightning. You picture it out there, a bright bead of ice and gas tumbling through the void, watching us with whatever passes for an eye in the deep. The idea should thrill you. Instead, it makes your skin tighten, because if it is watching, then it must be aware. And awareness implies choice. You remember the old stories, the ones about celestial omens, comets that signaled kings' deaths and plagues' births. Humanity has always feared the sky's handwriting. You smile weakly at the irony that now, even with satellites and math, we're still reading tea leaves. A practical thought drifts in like a life raft. Maybe it's just debris from some ancient collision, a shard of a system that lived and died before Earth was dust. The notion comforts you for half a heartbeat, until another thought follows it like a shadow. Then why is it accelerating toward us? In September, the first deep space probes catch up close enough for direct imaging. The photos are strange. The surface isn't smooth or jagged like other comets. It's patterned, faint grooves forming interlocking hexagons like scales or circuitry. The official statement says, natural fractal erosion. Unofficially, someone leaks a higher contrast version where the shapes align too neatly to be random. You save the image to your phone before it's scrubbed from the net. Every time you glance at it, you feel a small vertigo in your chest, like the first step down an unfamiliar stair. That night, lying in bed, you imagine the grooves lighting up, one by one, across its frozen skin. You imagine the pulse of light racing through those channels, the same rhythm that's been haunting the data. You imagine it counting, waiting, and then, for no reason you can name, you whisper into the dark, "We see you." It isn't prayer. It isn't defiance. It's acknowledgement, the kind we offer when a shadow finally takes shape. The room stays quiet, except for the low hum of your fridge, the faint ring of your own blood in your ears. Yet something in that silence feels newly attentive. The thought follows you into sleep. Maybe the first Black Swan doesn't arrive to destroy us. Maybe it arrives to remind us how fragile our certainty really was. The third month after discovery begins without ceremony. No explosion, no revelation, just that same silent shape slipping across the void like a thought too shy to finish itself. You wake to a faint ache in your chest you can't explain, as though some tiny part of you is keeping pace with something far away. You scroll through the morning headlines. For once, they agree. Three-Eye Atlas defies prediction again. That word again has become the quiet anthem of your generation. You sit at the kitchen table, spoon halfway to your mouth, watching a live stream from a Chilean observatory. Outside your window, dawn spreads across the city in quiet gold, but on the screen, space itself feels awake, restless. The astronomer narrating the feed clears her throat. "We're seeing rhythmic variation," she says, her voice too steady to be casual. It's not random noise, it's periodic. Every flare aligns to a repeating interval. She hesitates, glancing off-screen toward colleagues you can't see. If you plot the intervals, it forms symmetry across multiple observations, like... She stops, then smiles in that nervous human way that means, "I know how this sounds." Like a message, she says. And suddenly the word doesn't sound ridiculous anymore. You're still listening when the feed cuts to a graph, light intensity mapped over time, The pattern looks like a heartbeat run through a computer, up and down, and then a break, a long flat line of silence. Then again, the rhythm resumes. Someone overlays the sound, converting brightness to tone. The audio is simple, almost musical. You play it twice, then a third time, because your mind insists it recognizes something. You remember a childhood toy that blinked when you clapped, a plant that grew toward a melody you once hummed to it. The thought comes gently, absurdly. Maybe the universe just clapped. That afternoon, your feed explodes. Codebreakers, linguists, mathematicians, all offering theories. Some claim it's random. Others argue the pattern mirrors prime number intervals. A university in Berlin releases a working paper titled Non-Random Periodicity in Interstellar Body 3I's Atlas. Within hours, the servers crash. You don't understand all the math, but you don't have to. You can feel what it means, the same way you can tell when a song is about to shift key, even if you can't read the sheet music. Something deliberate is hiding in that rhythm. That night, you step outside again, unable to resist. The air feels charged, expectant. You look up. There are too many stars to find the one that's moving, but somehow you think it could find you. For a moment, you swear the silence between the crickets and wind sounds, patterned, like an answer waiting for its question. A week later, a small observatory in Australia catches something no one expects. Tiny bursts of radio static synchronized with the comet's optical pulse. Weak, faint, but there. The data leaks within hours. A journalist posts the raw spectrogram to social media. The caption reads, "Atlas may be talking." People laugh, argue, panic, create remixes, hashtags bloom. The usual digital chaos unfolds, but underneath it all, that old human tremor, the one that says, "What if?" You keep checking updates. The scientists' statements are cautious. Every word chosen like a step across thin ice. We cannot confirm intelligent origin. The signal could be instrumental interference. Further analysis required. But it's too late. Humanity has already started listening with its heart instead of its instruments. You begin to dream of it, not vividly, not like a story, but as texture and sound. Sometimes it's the clicking of a distant metronome, sometimes the reflection of sunlight on ripples, shifting faster than your eyes can follow. You wake with a strange certainty. It isn't hostile, just aware. One morning you record yourself saying that out loud. It's aware. Your voice sounds strange, as though echoing someone else's. You delete the file, but the silence afterward feels full. The first official response comes from NASA during a late-night press conference. A pale man in a navy suit speaks into too many microphones. The behavior of 3I Atlas is unprecedented, he says. At this stage, there is no evidence of artificial manipulation. We urge the public to remain calm and refrain from speculation. You almost laugh. Refrain from speculation? Humanity is built from it. He continues. Our best explanation involves irregular outgassing amplified by the comet's rotation. A journalist interrupts. But what about the synchronized radio bursts? The man's smile doesn't falter. Statistical coincidence, he says. You know that phrase. It's the polite version of, we have no idea. Over the next week, telescopes worldwide tune in. The signal grows stronger. The pattern refines itself. 5 beats, pause, 2 beats, longer pause. Always the same. online. Theories multiply. It's counting. It's mirroring our radar pings. It's broadcasting coordinates. It's saying hello. You don't post any of that. You just listen. And one night, in that half-sleep where dreams and reality blur, you whisper to yourself, what if it's been listening to us first? The thought chills you more than it should. Because if that's true, then this isn't a comet just passing through. It's a mirror, reflecting everything we've ever sent into the dark. By now, every human fear has found its favorite version of the story. Some call it a message. Others call it an omen. A few whisper machine and a few whisper God. You scroll past the noise and focus on one thread. A quiet group of astronomers, coders, and artists sharing data like notes in a secret orchestra. They notice something others have missed. The pattern is symmetrical around a midpoint, a pulse forward, a pulse backward, a rhythm of reflection, like two sides of a conversation. You lean back in your chair, staring at the ceiling as that realization settles in. The hum in your ears grows louder, but maybe it's not in your ears anymore. Maybe it's outside, matching you, note for note. You whisper a question you don't even know how to phrase. Are you waiting for us to understand? No answer comes, at least not the kind you can record. But that night, you dream again, and in the dream, light folds around itself like silk, spelling a single, impossible phrase you'll remember for the rest of your life. We were never gone. You wake before dawn, trembling. The world outside feels quieter than it should. You sit in the half-light, that sentence still echoing in your chest, and think about what it means for something to never have left. Because maybe the first Black Swan isn't an object at all. Maybe it's recognition. The moment you realize the universe has already been aware of you for longer than you've existed. You notice it first in tone, not data. Announcements shift from declarative to conditional. Verbs wrapped in bubble wrap. Appears, suggests, may indicate. In panels and preprints, the sky stops being a stable noun and becomes a verb with stage fright. You keep listening anyway, because the hush between sentences has started to sound like music you almost recognize. In the morning feed, two windows argue across the world. On the left, a veteran dynamicist with chalk on his sleeve outlines every cometary quirk he's cataloged since dial-up. Non-gravitational acceleration isn't new, he insists, tapping equations that look like lace. Jets can do this. Rotation can lock periodic outgassing. We've seen odd ratios before, even if this CO2 H2O profile is spirited. He says spirited the way chefs say interesting about a dish that tried too hard. On the right, a young radio astronomer with dark crescents under her eyes says softly, "We'd agree if the intervals weren't so clean. We're not arguing for aliens. We're arguing for honesty. The symmetry we're seeing is..." She searches the room for a safer word than deliberate and settles on persistent. Your chest tightens not from fear, but from recognition of a bridge that might not hold. It's not just physics versus wonder. It's tempo versus tempo. One side asks the universe to speak slower. The other admits it might already be speaking that way. At your sink, you peel an orange. Hands remember the spiral path without asking your head's permission. The kitchen fills with that bright, clean smell that means you have chosen to be alive in small ways. A practical fact comforts you. The pith always sticks to one stubborn segment. You chew it anyway. Bitterness can be part of breakfast. The radio mumbles on the counter, weather, markets, the soft click of the newsreader's tongue. When she reaches 3i Atlas, you hear the careful step around a sleeping dog. Community response remains mixed. The split spreads like dye in water. In labs, people pick sides without wanting to, parameters or possibility. The parameters team writes lovely papers that demonstrate how a rotating body could fake intention if you squint toward noon. The possibility team writes careful letters that do not say intelligence, only pattern, resonance, mirroring. The rest of us hover, guilty and exhilarated at the crossing. You take a bus to clear your head. Transit is democratic like that. Everyone hums along the same route, knuckles pale at the same corners. Across the aisle, a teenager watches a sped-up time-lapse of the comet's flares synced to lo-fi beats. You catch yourself counting with it before you notice you've started. 5, pause, 2, pause, 5. The bus sighs at a stop. A woman boards with a laundry basket and the warm smell of cotton. And you realize comfort has a temperature. You try to stay neutral. You fail, then forgive yourself. Because at 3 in the morning, when you get up for water and the apartment hums like an instrument left in a sunlit room, you feel that old instinct, the one that lives in stairwells and empty parking garages, tap your shoulder. Alone in a strange place is a chord more than a sentence. Tonight, it resolves softer, but it is still there, on a folding chair, making sure the exits are marked. You say, "I see you," to the guard in your ribs, and it relaxes a fraction. By afternoon, a high-gloss forum stages a debate with the drama of a court show. Words like epistemology and method flicker under glossy B-roll of star fields. The host, teeth very white, asks, "Is this the first Black Swan in space?" The dynamicist chuckles politely. "Black swans are only black because we haven't looked far enough." The radio astronomer nods. "Exactly," she says, surprising him. "So let's admit the lake isn't the whole ocean." You like her immediately. You imagine she waters her plants when she's sad. Your phone buzzes with a message from an acquaintance who speaks in absolutes. It's just a comet. You type and erase twice before sending back. What if just is a cage word? You expect an argument. Instead, fair. You smile at the small mercy of a mind that steps sideways for a breath. Have you ever noticed how crowds breathe together without meaning to? You do now. In checkout lines, in lobbies, even on sidewalks when the light changes. Today, the crowd's inhale feels longer, as if the city itself is learning to make room. You ask yourself the question you've been avoiding. What do you lose if the universe is more alive than your favorite certainty? The answer isn't a thing. It's a posture. In a stairwell between lectures, someone has taped printouts of the comet's light curve beside a hand-lettered sign. So what do we call this? Below, a cascade of sticky notes. Coincidence, artifact, noise, music, mirror, map. You add one that simply says maybe. It feels like a moral. There is levity if you let it in. Joke one limps on stage wearing a lab coat. If 3i Atlas is rotation-locked outgassing, then so is your cat when it circles before choosing a sunspot. You snort at your own silliness, and the tension drops from your shoulders like a coat you forgot you were allowed to take off. Joke 2 arrives via group chat. A photo of an office whiteboard scrawled with flair care, but underlined into flirtation. Someone has drawn the comet with eyelashes. You pretend you're above it. You are not. Night falls like a hand over a lamp. In a quiet stream from a small observatory, a grad student stares into her microphone and to no one in particular says, "I'm scared of being wrong in public." Then, after a beat, I'm more scared of teaching the sky to whisper and then refusing to lean in. You want to clap, but settle for stillness. The comments are kind, miracle enough to count. Governments issue statements written by committees. We are monitoring. Do not panic. Models are being updated. Somewhere a minister of something uses the phrase contingency posture, which sounds like a yoga pose for bureaucrats. You picture a room where people practice breathing into the spaces between spreadsheets. The image helps. On your walk home, you pass a small park where volunteers set up telescopes for passers-by. The air smells faintly of grass and hot metal. A kid in a dinosaur hoodie climbs the step stool, looks, and announces with ceremony, "It's blinking." His father says, "They all blink," but the volunteer tips you a look. "Not like this." You take your turn. The eyepiece is a cold coin against your orbit. The sky is a salt white scatter, and there, at the edge of your patience, a pale bead brightens, rests, dims, like someone tapping on the aquarium glass from the other side, and then, thoughtfully, stopping. Have you ever imagined the universe clearing its throat before changing the subject? At home, the fishbone of your bookshelf throws long shadows that look like a seismograph. You pour water over the plant as if it were an altar. Domestic truth. Basil sulks unless you turn it often. You move the pot a quarter turn. It forgives you immediately. Your phone pings again. A link. New preprint. Symmetry and flare intervals persists under different smoothing windows. Another link. Broadband receiver picks up weak bursts at predicted moments. Your breath does the thing breath does when a door opens, and you didn't realize it was locked. It goes all the way down. You sit on the floor because chairs feel like a vote for distance. The room has that late-hour acoustics where even a page-turning sound's employed. You think of Black Swans, how the story is really about the fragility of certainty, the way we build whole houses out of never and then act shocked when a single bird refuses to be white. You ask yourself leniently, what parts of your life have you mistaken for law because you were tired? The question lands not as shame but as a nap. By now you've learned the ritual that steadies you. Trace a small map of the known and invite the unknown to sit beside it. Known. Retrograde path near the ecliptic. Known, CO2/H2O ratio off the charts this far out. Known, pulses too neat for comfort, too messy for machines. Unknown, intention. Unknown, audience. Unknown, where your fear ends and your imagination begins. Joke 3 shuffles onto the stage in socks. If this is a simulation, the sysadmin just found the jazz setting. You grin at the ceiling and let the thought pass through. Humor doesn't fix the split, it makes it passable. The arguments will go on. They should. Good faith deserves a long table. But tonight, lying with the window cracked to let in the night's cool grammar, you feel something else. A thin filament running from your sternum to a point in the dark that refuses to be only rock and ice. Wonder and dread braid themselves into a rope you can hold. You do not choose a side. You choose a seat near the door where you can hear both the chalk and the whisper. Outside, the city goes to low tide. Inside, you keep counting without meaning to. 5, pause, 2. And every so often you stop and ask, not for proof, just for the decent courage to admit what you feel. It arrives without trumpet, the sense that the split is not a break, but a hinge, that the sky is not divided against itself so much as opening. When you finally sleep, it is like stepping into a hallway lit every 20 feet by a gentle lamp. The fear still does its rounds, checking locks. The wonder walks beside it, hands in pockets, humming. Somewhere far and quiet, the comet keeps its interval, and somewhere just as far and just as quiet, your breath answers. Persistent, persistent, persistent. The morning starts as though the planet itself is hesitating. A thin gray light spreads through the blinds, softer than usual, unsure. You stand still for a moment before moving, listening to the hum inside your own walls. The air feels thick with expectation, as if the world has been told a secret and hasn't yet decided whether to share it. You make tea, stirring slowly, the spoon clicking against porcelain in a rhythm that almost matches the pulse you can't stop hearing, the comet's flicker pattern that has lived rent-free in your head for weeks now. 5 beats, pause, 2 beats, long rest. It's become the planet's new metronome. You tell yourself it's only coincidence that your own heartbeat occasionally syncs with it. But when it does, you feel a strange steadiness, like for once your body belongs to something larger than your name. Today the sky is different. You can't explain how, but you know it is. Even the clouds seem to hold formation longer, as if listening. Somewhere, deep space observatories confirm what everyone has suspected, but no one wants to say aloud. 3i Atlas isn't following its original path anymore. It's correcting. That word, correcting, ripples through the scientific world like a tremor. It's a small deviation, only a fraction of a degree, but it's deliberate, calculated, intentional. And suddenly, half the world stops breathing at the same time. You're at work when the alert flashes across your screen. It's not an emergency broadcast. Not yet. Just a quiet breaking news banner sliding by in red. Trajectory shift detected. You open the live feed automatically, your hands cold without reason. On the screen, there it is. The comet, the impossible traveler, burning faintly against a field of stars. At first, it looks no different than before, but then, yes, you can see it. The subtle bend in its path, like a dancer changing partners mid-turn. The host on the broadcast is doing his best to sound rational, still within theoretical tolerance, probably due to outgassing, unlikely to represent a guided course correction. And then he hesitates, listening to something in his earpiece. When he looks back into the camera, he has that look you've come to recognize, the expression humans wear when their equations have betrayed them. He says, "Ladies and gentlemen, it appears to be slowing down." You don't realize you've stood up until the chair creaks behind you. Your coworkers gather around the nearest monitor, a small ring of faces reflected in the screen's glow. Someone jokes, "Guess it's braking for a red light," and everyone laughs too loudly. Nervous laughter, the oldest coping mechanism in the species. But you're not laughing. You're listening. The hum is there again. The rhythm. 5, pause, 2, pause. You whisper it under your breath, not realizing that others nearby are doing the same. For a few seconds, the whole room murmurs the same unconscious chant. Then someone notices and turns the volume up too high to drown it out. By evening, the world is wide awake. No one can sleep. News anchors broadcast through the night, their smiles more like apologies. The comet continues to slow, not dramatically but steadily, like an object responding to something unseen. And still, it glows. The color now leans toward a deep turquoise, shimmering at the edge of visible spectrum. Observers in the southern hemisphere report faint auroras in latitudes where no aurora should exist. The air itself feels magnetized, almost alive. In Chile, the Atlas team releases new data. The outgassing rate hasn't changed, yet the acceleration has, in the opposite direction. It's not propulsion, it's resistance, as if something, or someone, were tapping the brakes. You take a long walk after midnight because staying inside feels like trying to breathe through cotton. The streets are quiet. Even the city seems subdued, as though it too is listening. Streetlights flicker with a slow rhythm that shouldn't be there. And for a strange moment, you wonder if they're trying to speak the comet's language. You reach the park and sit on the damp bench by the pond. The reflection of the sky ripples faintly, the stars wobbling on the surface like coins tossed into a well. Somewhere above, invisible to the naked eye, 3-Eye Atlas continues its impossible choreography. You imagine what it must look like up close, ice and shadow and ancient light, wrapped around a heartbeat the size of mountains. You imagine what it might feel, if feeling were possible, the weightless ache of being seen after eons of wandering unobserved. Have you ever imagined what it would be like for something not alive to decide to be noticed? Your phone buzzes, a live stream from the Geneva Observatory. The chat scrolls too fast to read. You turn up the volume just as a voice, calm, clipped, British, begins. We've confirmed a repeating signal at a harmonic multiple of the optical pulse. It's coherent across multiple receivers. Someone off-screen asks what that means. The scientist adjusts his glasses. It means it's coordinated, he says. If it's random, it's the most structured randomness we've ever recorded. He glances down, as if reluctant to finish the thought. It could mean communication, or it could mean awareness. The feed cuts out. You sit in the dark, phone glowing in your palm, heart thudding. Awareness. The word lands softly, like snow on skin. Quiet, cold, irreversible. By dawn, the internet has renamed it again. No longer the pulse, no longer the thinking comet. It's now the listener, because that's what it's doing, listening. A linguist on a late-night panel points out something eerie. The intervals between the comet's pulses have started to align with the timing of Earth's radar pings. For every signal we send into space, every planetary scan, every deep space call, the comet seems to echo it back, slightly altered, like an echo or an answer. You think back to when this all began, how small it seemed, how ordinary. Just a comet, just another speck of ice. But now, standing at your window with dawn beginning to pale the sky, you realize the truth. The universe never does anything halfway. It either stays silent for billions of years, or it answers all at once. You touch the cold glass and whisper, "Are you real?" And somehow, impossibly, you already know the answer doesn't matter. Because whether it's a comet or a construct, a traveler or a mirror, something out there heard us, and it's changing course. You stay there until the first sunlight breaks over the horizon, turning the city gold. The hum in your chest fades to quiet. For a moment you think you can hear the world breathing again. You wonder if this is how discovery always feels at first. Not excitement, but awe wearing the mask of fear. Maybe this is what the first black swan in space looks like. A thing that refuses to be what we decided it must be. A mirror, floating through the dark, daring us to see ourselves. You wake before the alarm, not startled, not unrested, simply aware, like someone who's been listening all night to a sound too low for the human ear. The room is still, but there's that odd weight in the air again, that almost audible hush that settles before something unrepeatable happens. Your phone screen glows with notifications. Headlines stack like falling dominoes. 3-Eye Atlas veers off course again, now aimed sunward. Global observatories report gravity anomalies. Is the comet responding to solar activity? You sit up slowly, There's no panic, not yet. Just the uneasy calm of a dream that insists on being real. Outside, the city feels quieter than it should at this hour. You walk to the balcony and stand barefoot on cold concrete, the world washed in that half-light between night and day. Somewhere beyond the clouds, the comet continues its impossible journey, turning, slowing, thinking, maybe. You whisper it before you realize you've spoken. Where are you going? By midday, every news outlet has a live ticker. You learn that Atlas is no longer following the predictable arc around the sun. It's spiraling, gently, gracefully, like a moth learning how to orbit a flame. The astrophysics forums go feral. Some call it a gravitational anomaly. Others whisper about non-gravitational thrust. You watch a live stream from an observatory in Hawaii. The host is visibly shaking, not from fear, but exhilaration. "We're seeing a feedback resonance," she says. "The comet's velocity matches the oscillations in the solar magnetic field, like it's sinking." Sinking. The word feels strange in your mouth. You roll it around like a lozenge, half in wonder, half in dread. That night, you dream you're floating, not in water, not in air, just in space. Around you, billions of pinpoints of light shimmer, but one burns brighter than the rest, pulsing slowly. It draws you closer, not with gravity, but with curiosity. You stretch a hand toward it and realize it's not cold at all. It's warm, almost breathing. When you wake, you're sweating, heart thudding. The hum is back, faint, but there. You check the time. 3:03 a.m. The news ticker at the bottom of your phone screen reads, "Comet's tail exhibiting unusual electromagnetic discharge, possible plasma resonance." You stare at the headline until the letters stop making sense. The words don't matter. What matters is the feeling curling beneath them, the sense that something old is remembering how to move. At breakfast, a commentator on the radio jokes, "Maybe it's solar surfing." His co-host laughs, but her voice trembles on the edge of belief. You think of surfers, how they balance on chaos, trusting rhythm to save them. Maybe that's all this is, the universe learning balance again. Then, another voice joins the broadcast, a scientist. His tone is different, patient, quiet, almost reverent. "It's not impossible," he says, "that the comet is responding to something we haven't modeled, an underlying structure in solar space, a hidden geometry." You hold your breath. Hidden geometry. He continues, "We're starting to see repeating ratios, 3 to 2 to 5 patterns that don't belong to chaos. The universe doesn't usually improvise that neatly." You switch off the radio. The kitchen feels suddenly too small for what he's just said. Later, while scrolling through comments, you find a link to a forum thread titled "The Mirror Hypothesis." It's full of grainy graphs and blurry screenshots, but one post stands out, a single sentence written in calm, measured text. What if Atlas isn't communicating with us, but about us? You stare at it longer than you mean to. The idea chills you, not because it's sinister, but because it feels right. Like the comet isn't a messenger, but a reflection of the noise we've been sending into the dark for a century, our radar, our TV shows, our desperate little hellos to the void. What if it's repeating them back, translated into the only language it knows? Light. You remember the strange flicker in the data, the symmetrical pulse, the pauses like breath. You remember how the radio bursts seem to echo human transmissions. And suddenly, a terrifying, beautiful idea takes shape. Maybe 3-eye Atlas is the universe holding up a mirror. You think about what it would see. Centuries of war, laughter, algorithms, poems, and noise. A planet shouting into silence, waiting for an answer that might have been echoing all along. You feel it deep in your chest, that old loneliness, the fear every human carries when they look at the stars and feel smaller than their own heartbeat. What if we were never alone, but just too loud to hear the reply? By evening, the comet has moved closer to the sun than any known interstellar object before it. It should be disintegrating, burning itself out. Instead, it brightens. Astronomers call it anomalous albedo expansion. You call it what it feels like, a flare, a gesture. It's like watching a candle grow brighter as it melts. All over the world, people gather on rooftops, beaches, and mountain ridges to watch the faint shimmer in the sky. You go too, drawn by something wordless. The air feels charged, the atmosphere itself vibrating in that familiar 5-2 rhythm. Strangers stand shoulder to shoulder in the darkness, united not by belief but by silence. Some hold hands, some pray, some just breathe. You look up, and for the first time you see it with your own eyes. Faint, yes, but there, a teal spark cutting slowly across the black, pulsing like a distant heartbeat. It doesn't look mechanical. It doesn't look alien. It looks alive. The crowd gasps when it flares once, brighter than any star for a brief, impossible instant, and then dims again. Someone whispers, "It's saying something." You find yourself nodding. "Yes," you say softly, "I think it is." When you return home, the city feels quieter, gentler. The traffic lights seem to hold green just long enough for pedestrians to cross without hurry. Street lamps flicker faintly in the same 5-2 rhythm, though you know it's just coincidence. You lie in bed staring at the ceiling. Sleep won't come. Your mind loops back to that single line on the forum. What if it's about us? And you realize something that stops your breath. If the comet's light is a mirror and we're the reflection, then every unpredictable move it makes is just the universe showing us what it looks like when something finally refuses to behave according to plan. Maybe that's what a black swan really is. Not a threat, but a correction. A reminder that chaos is only frightening until it reveals its pattern. You close your eyes and let the hum carry you under. The comet is still out there, orbiting not just the sun, but everything we thought we knew. And somewhere in the dark, a pulse continues. 5. Pause. 2. Pause. Like the heartbeat of a thought too vast to finish. The world wakes into static. Not the kind you hear on radios. This one hums under your skin, in the spaces between appliances, in the air before rain. The comet has come closer still, though closer in astronomical terms still means distant beyond imagination. And yet, everyone feels it. Like a hand pressed lightly against the atmosphere, testing the pulse of a planet. You open the window and lean out, just enough to feel the morning's strange electricity. The sky looks normal, the way calm water hides a current. Somewhere, a dog barks once and stops, as if it too has been interrupted by the feeling that something vast is paying attention. You whisper, "You're watching, aren't you?" But the breeze swallows the words before they leave your lips. Every screen in the world begins to show the same kind of news. Anomalies. Ocean currents reversing direction for brief intervals. Auroras blooming along the equator. Satellites recording bursts of radiation that flicker at the comet's rhythm. 5. Pause. 2. An astronomer on television explains it in that dry scientific tone that only half convinces. The pattern may simply be resonance, he says, a coincidence of frequency. But you can see the tremor in his hands. Resonance, maybe. Coincidence, maybe not. Someone online writes, "The tides are breathing in sync with it." You scroll past, but the sentence lingers, breathing quietly in the back of your mind. By noon, you begin to notice the little things. The clock on your wall ticks slower, almost imperceptibly. The kitchen light flickers in time with a pulse you no longer have to imagine. And outside, traffic seems to move in strange intervals, waves of motion, then silence, as though the city itself is keeping time with something no one can see. It doesn't feel threatening, it feels organized. You step outside, and the sunlight feels different, heavier, almost textured. The world smells sharper. Trees shimmer faintly, leaves whispering in small, synchronized gestures. You can't explain it, but you know you're not alone in noticing. The neighbor's curtains flutter open just as yours do, and across the street, someone stands barefoot on their porch, eyes closed, face tilted to the sky. Have you ever felt the world exhale and realized you were part of its breath? Evening brings the first reports of magnetic anomalies in human bodies. Hospitals measure small, harmless fluctuations in pulse rhythms, localized to certain latitudes. Pacemakers hum faintly in the same pattern as the comet's light curve. Someone posts footage from an MRI machine flickering on and off, rhythmically, while idle. It sounds absurd until it happens to you. You're washing dishes when the faucet hums, not loudly, not unpleasantly, but low and steady. The plates in the sink tremble softly, ringing in resonance. The water itself seems to vibrate under your hands, creating a pattern on the surface. Concentric ripples forming, pausing, forming again. 5. Pause. 2. You stop breathing for a moment. The rhythm isn't inside you anymore. It's everywhere. And yet, it's not frightening. It's like standing in the middle of a crowd all breathing in the same cadence. You're not being overtaken. You're being included. Later that night, global feeds explode with footage of something new. Light in the oceans. Not just bioluminescence, not the soft, natural glow of plankton, but vast coordinated pulses of turquoise light spreading across thousands of miles of sea. Satellite images show the entire Pacific flashing faintly in synchronization with the comet's emissions. Then the Atlantic, then the Indian Ocean. The world's water has joined the rhythm. For 1 hour, the planet flickers like a living heartbeat. Then the glow fades, leaving the world in stunned, shimmering quiet. You spend the night watching the sky, unable to sleep. The comet is visible now, even to the naked eye. A streak of pale green rising over the horizon. It moves slowly, but not aimlessly. There's grace in its motion, a dancer's certainty. People around the world have given it a new name, the symmetry. The scientists keep to their formulas, still cautious, but you can feel the shift even in their voices. What began as skepticism has become awe tinged with surrender. The models don't fit anymore, and maybe that's the point. Because what if the universe was never supposed to be predictable? What if it's been improvising this whole time, and we just caught it mid-song? Around midnight, a small coastal town in Norway reports something extraordinary. The aurora above them bends, splits, and forms a pattern. A perfect circle of light with a gap at its edge, like a ring waiting to close. For minutes, people stand in the cold, their faces lit in shifting blues and greens. And then, as if on cue, the missing segment fills in. The ring completes itself. At that exact moment, 3I Atlas flares again. a sharp, silent burst of light that saturates every telescope on Earth. Instruments overload, cameras white out, and then, when the glare fades, the comet is no longer where it should be. It has moved, subtly, impossibly, into a new orbit that no one predicted. The data shows something even more impossible. Its trajectory now mirrors Earth's own orbital plane, as if it has decided to travel alongside us. It's not passing through anymore, it's staying. Governments convene emergency meetings. Satellites lose contact, then re-establish it. Economists start muttering about cascade scenarios. Preachers fill airwaves with prophecies. But none of that noise reaches you where you sit, at your window, watching the faint shimmer of teal slide along the edge of dawn. You realize that something in you has already accepted it. You don't know what Three Eyes Atlas is. Machine, organism, mirror, omen. But you feel deep down that this isn't about fear or survival anymore. It's about recognition. The comet has found resonance, not in data or gravity, but in life, in oceans, air, electricity, pulse, in you. The hum inside you shifts, no longer background, but harmony. It matches your heartbeat, your breath, the small whirring sound the refrigerator makes in the next room. You feel it in your bones. That you are, for once, perfectly in tune with the unknown. And it dawns on you quietly, almost kindly. Maybe the Black Swan isn't something that breaks the pattern. Maybe it's the moment the pattern finally decides to include you. You look up at the comet one last time before sleep. Its glow is faint now, diffused across the night like phosphorescent fog. But you know it's there, pulsing gently in rhythm with the seas, the lights, the lungs of the world. The stars seem to move a little slower tonight, as though the universe itself is listening to its own heartbeat, for the first time in billions of years. And beneath that sound, barely perceptible, you hear it again, a whisper from the dark, so faint it feels like memory. You were never just observers. You wake to a world holding its breath. The air feels dense, metallic, as if filled with invisible dust. Phones buzz with news before you even reach for them. Markets stutter, planes grounded, navigation satellites misaligned by seconds that feel like miles. The headlines try to sound like headlines, but each carries a tremor beneath the typeface, that same steady rhythm that's been crawling into every living thing. You read the words as if they were heartbeat lines. 3 Atlas enters equatorial resonance band. Global systems report synchronized anomalies. Planet-wide temporal offset measured at 0.003 seconds. You laugh quietly, because what else is there to do? Time itself is trying to keep tempo with a rock from another star. The thought feels both absurd and inevitable. You whisper, "We're in the song now." At first, the signs are subtle. The second hand on your clock skips, pauses, corrects. The lights in your apartment blink in near-perfect sync, 5 pause 2, like a nervous system testing its reflexes. Then larger things begin to sway. The tides shift off schedule by minutes, then by hours. Birds gather in strange lattices in the sky, perfect V's folding into spirals, holding their shape longer than any natural formation should. Whales breach in unison across entire coasts, as if following a signal older than sound. The news calls it the symmetry effect. You can feel it even when you're still. In the weeks that follow, something fundamental begins to change in how people move. Entire cities start to slow, just slightly, unconsciously adjusting to the new rhythm of the planet. Crowds cross intersections in perfect waves. Subways arrive without delays for the first time in memory. Power grids stabilize despite demand surges. It's as though chaos has decided at last to take a deep breath. You walk through the city and feel the hush under the surface. Not fear, not calm, something in between. Everyone seems to hear it now. The hum that's no longer outside, but everywhere. It fills the cracks between moments like resin. A journalist posts a video from Tokyo, a skyscraper's reflection in a river, shimmering in exact time with Atlas's pulse. The caption reads, "Gravity shouldn't do this. Maybe gravity is learning to listen." You keep rereading it until you realize it's not about physics at all. It's about surrender. That night, a global live stream begins. The Black Swan Symposium, broadcast from Geneva. Every field has a voice there. Physicists, philosophers, psychologists, theologians. The screen fills with faces from every time zone, half of them lit by the pale glow of night monitors. The moderator opens with a quiet sentence. Tonight, we discuss not what it is, but what it means. A philosopher in his 60s leans forward first. When a black swan appears, he says, the world breaks. Not because it ends, but because it outgrows itself. Our frameworks crack not from destruction, but from expansion. A biologist adds, the comet doesn't just defy models, it exposes them like a mirror held to our assumptions. And finally, the radio astronomer you remember from months ago, the one who spoke softly, carefully, lifts her head. Her eyes are tired but alive. We used to think the universe was indifferent, she says. Now I wonder if it's just been waiting for the right frequency to answer back. The chat explodes with emojis, hearts, stars, and the word listen repeated like a mantra. You sit in the dark, smiling faintly, tears pricking at your eyes for reasons you can't explain. Maybe it's the relief of hearing something that feels like truth after months of speculation. Maybe it's the quiet recognition that mystery doesn't have to be an enemy. Outside, the sky flickers again. This time, it's global. Every major observatory confirms it within seconds. The comet has expanded its coma to nearly 5 times its previous diameter. It's glowing in multiple wavelengths: radio, ultraviolet, infrared, all modulated in perfect mathematical ratios. Those ratios match one thing precisely: the structure of Earth's magnetic field. It's not broadcasting anymore. It's reflecting. Scientists call it planetary phase locking. The rest of the world calls it the alignment. The first night of the alignment, power grids flicker across continents, not failing, just adjusting. Your phone vibrates with static, then, faintly, a tone. You open the spectrogram app you downloaded weeks ago out of curiosity. The waveform pulses on screen, steady, rhythmic, familiar. But as you watch, it changes. The signal begins to layer. First one tone, then another, then harmonics building over each other until the screen looks less like noise and more like a fingerprint made of sound. And then, impossibly, you recognize it. The same pattern repeats across the globe. A perfect mirror of humanity's earliest recorded radio message to the stars. The 1974 Arecibo transmission. The comet is singing it back. You sit down on the floor because your legs don't trust you anymore. The old fear, the kind that lives in stairwells and under beds, leans close for its obligatory inspection. This can't be real, it whispers. You're too small for this. You answer it out loud. So is everyone. The fear blinks, uncertain, and retreats to a safe distance. As night deepens, the world glows faintly from above. auroras at every latitude, painting continents in slow motion curtains of color. Cities dim their lights to see better. For one night, humanity agrees to be quiet. The comet flares again, slow and deliberate. 5. Pause. 2. Pause. But now, there's an echo. A second pulse. Earth's magnetic field responding in kind. The planet and the visitor breathe together. You press your hand against the window and feel a soft vibration through the glass. The hum that began as rumor, now fully alive. A question surfaces, not as thought, but as instinct. What if the Black Swan isn't something that happens to the world, but something the world becomes? Maybe this was never about contact. Maybe it's about coherence, the moment when randomness finds its rhythm. And maybe, just maybe, that rhythm was always waiting for us to slow down long enough to hear it. Somewhere across the ocean, a child asks her mother, "What's happening to the sky?" The mother smiles without really knowing. "It's remembering us," she says. And in the quiet that follows, every light on the planet seems to pulse once, as if agreeing. You don't remember falling asleep, only waking to a sky that looks newly ironed. The air has that bright metallic clarity after a storm, except there wasn't one. Your phone lifts its own head and begins lining up headlines like shells on a windowsill. Juno cams flare, ultraviolet bursts near Jupiter, Atlas transits magnetotail, ghost light on Earth's fields. You read them with the slow care you give to fragile things, as though a wrong glance might crack the morning. The first clip loads. Jupiter, banded and patient, a cathedral of weather. Off its limb, 3-eye Atlas slides past like a candle carried down a long corridor. It should be small. It is not. For a breath, 2, 5, the comet exhales in ultraviolet, a fan of invisible brightness rendered by instruments into something your eyes can learn. The plume flexes, stutters, then resolves into bars, ladders, arcs. Not random, not art. A grammar of light pressed against the planet's magnetic skin, like a musician running scales up a cello to find the resonant rib. The commentary tries to keep pace. "We're detecting structured UV emissions," someone says from a room full of carefully sat chairs. The pattern, appears to align with flux ropes in Jupiter's magnetotail. Your brain files away the phrase flux ropes because it's the sort of poetry science writes by accident. On the visualization, the plume touches a loop of field line, and that loop brightens, then another, a rosary of charged air learning a new prayer. Have you ever imagined sound drawn with shadow? Notes that only reveal themselves when you look away from the band that plays them. Juno swings, the feed cuts, returns to a second instrument. A wider field, darker. There, trailing behind Jupiter like a river of night, the magnetotail stretches absurdly far, hundreds of millions of kilometers, and Atlas threads it, stitching with patience. Each stitch answers something unseen. When the comet exits, the tail keeps humming, as if the song it learned does not require the teacher to remain in the room. By noon, the Earth-facing data arrives. Not aurora, those have become familiar miracles, but an eerie overlay, ultraviolet maps composited across our planet's magnetic field. The continents blossom in contours no human eye can see, painted in invisible ink and then revealed by machines. Arcs unfurl over the Pacific, mirror across the Atlantic. A ring brightens around Antarctica, like a wedding band the ice forgot to show us. It's not uniform, it's specific. The patterns trace the same ratios that have followed you for weeks, 3 to 2 to 5. Scaled now into geography, you step to the window and for no sensible reason, touch the glass with 2 fingers. The pane is cool. Beneath it, the city goes about the honest work of being awake. Buses sighing at corners. A delivery cyclist negotiating with gravity and cardboard. A woman balancing a paper tray full of coffees like she's carrying a pond. Close to life fact. Coffee sloshes always choose the lightest shirt. You smile into the small doom of it and feel steadier. Your building's corridor waits outside your door, long and quiet, the carpet the color of serious intentions. You hesitate. It's that old human nuisance again, the fear of being the only upright animal in a space designed for many. Alone in a hallway, alone in a stairwell, alone in a parking lot with the wind choosing its lanes. You name it gently so it doesn't have to shout. You can come, you tell it, and step out. The corridor follows at a polite distance, embarrassed to be needed. Down at the waterfront, a group of volunteers have set up 2 telescopes and an optimism table. Maps, thermoses, a plate of cookies that taste like flour learning to be memory. Someone has printed the UV overlays and taped them to the railing, wind snapping the corners. A teenager traces a luminous line with a gloved finger. These aren't storms, she says to no one specific. They're seems. The word hangs, accurate by accident. A researcher in a windbreaker you've seen in 3 different live streams is there, hair in practical rebellion. She speaks softly, as if afraid of squeezing the truth until it squeaks. The UV bursts map to our field lines, she says. Not a copy, a sympathetic drawing. She taps a printout. Here, over the South Atlantic anomaly, see how the pattern thickens? It's like the comet feels the thin places. She glances up, measuring your belief. We always thought of magnetospheres as shields. Today they look like instruments. The water at your feet pulls a narrow trick, a sleeve of ripple sliding inland against the wind, as though some unseen hand had brushed it. You crouch and watch sunlight shear across the small ridges. For a blink, the glitter resolves into ladders that echo the Jovian bars. Then the geometry dissolves back into plain bright breakage. You've missed nothing. The pattern was there because you were. A message from the pilot lands in your pocket. Audio only. Deck sounds in the background. Gulls arguing about syntax. You seeing this? She asks, and doesn't wait. Our magnetometers are singing. Not loud, but true. A pause. Funny thing, one of the crew keeps a fern in the wheelhouse, fronds unfurled at dawn like it got the memo first. You laugh, and it comes out like a breath remembering its punchline. Joke one arrives to keep your shoulders from becoming epaulettes. If ferns are getting briefed before humans, we should at least put them on the committee. You picture a conference table with a potted quorum nodding in green assent. Afternoon brings a longer view. Satellites stitch the UV maps into time-lapse. The comet's Jupiter passing plume. Then, minutes later, the Earth's magnetic face answering in rings and chevrons. The delay isn't exact, but it's consistent, like thunder following an unfamiliar lightning. Analysts overlay our long history of radio leakage, Arecibo, planetary radar, the accidental music of our broadcasts, onto the field. The match is not neat. It is convincing. You entertain the dangerous question, is Atlas performing a cover of us, using planets as speakers? Have you ever thought of a comet as a finger tracing the staff lines of space, teaching worlds a melody they were already half humming? You walk home by back streets because your ears want brick and leaf and the scrape of tires on gravel. On a wall beneath a rail bridge, someone has chalked the waveform you've been living with. 5, pause 2, and beneath it, in a hand that knows cursive and kindness, we hear you. You stop beside the words and let the world line up inside your ribs. The fear, dutiful usher checks the exits. For once it finds them all open and looks back at you for instruction. We're staying through the credits, you tell it. It nods, sits. Evening settles like water poured from a great height. The world's instruments keep their vigil. Radio arrays, magnetometers, cameras that see more kinds of dark than you do. The data keeps drawing continents in a light we don't have eyes for. Over the South Pacific, a broad oval brightens, fades, brightens. Breath-made cartography. Over Africa, a chain of arcs steps north as if testing stones in a crossing. Over your town, nothing dramatic happens at all, and the ordinary mercy of that makes you want to call someone you love and ask if they remember the sound of rain on a tin roof. You do call, and you talk about groceries first, because reverence needs handles. Olive oil, eggs, a stubborn light bulb. Then you both fall quiet in that way that says the room is listening too. Do you think it's talking? They ask. You consider. Maybe not to us, you say. Maybe about us, or with. The prepositions feel like small boats. You choose one and hope the current is kind. Night takes the edges off things. You stand at the open window, the city offering its mild chorus. Distant siren, a laugh trailing a block and a half, elevator cables negotiating treaties with floors. Above, clouds cruise like late trains. Somewhere far past them, the comet that shouldn't be is painting planets with a brush your eyes can't see, mapping fields as if to remind them where their lines once ran. Joke 2 pads in its socks. If Earth and Jupiter are instruments, who's on percussion? Answer, probably the moon, rolling its eyes and keeping time. You grin into the dark. Humor remains a faithful border guard between awe and overwhelm. When sleep takes you, it chooses a familiar hallway and better bulbs. You walk it without hurrying, and the lights do not flicker. At the far end, a door holds its own weight without complaint. Behind it is a room you have not earned yet. You touch the knob and feel a gentle thrum, not a command, not a warning, only the soft announcement of presence. You leave the door closed. You've learned how to end a day before it finishes you. Outside, far and astonishingly near, a traveler from another star draws shadows that teach planets to sing, and a small animal with a complicated heart learns to listen by standing still. Morning comes soft, hesitant, the kind of dawn that doesn't want to startle anyone. You lie still, half awake, aware of the light before you open your eyes. The air feels heavier now, like the world is filled with quiet intention. Somewhere far above, 3A Atlas drifts alongside the planet, its faint teal glow a whisper at the edge of existence. You stretch, slow, deliberate. The hum is there again, fainter than before but deeper, as though it's moved inside the walls. The whole building breathes in rhythm, a low vibration just under hearing, not menacing, not mechanical, almost alive. For a moment you think you can feel it, the pulse of something vast and curious, waiting. The news anchors have stopped pretending to sound certain. The once daily briefings have turned into long, quiet conversations, with scientists sitting beside poets, oceanographers beside priests. Everyone is trying to name the same feeling, that something beyond calculation has arrived, and it isn't leaving. A new term has appeared in headlines, the quiet singularity, Not the technological one, not apocalypse, but an awakening, a shift not in matter, but in mood. You sip coffee and watch a panel discussion between a neuroscientist and an astrophysicist. The scientist with the silver hair says, "We've measured a faint electromagnetic resonance aligning with human brainwaves, nothing dangerous, but global, perfectly synchronized with Atlas's pulse." The astrophysicist adds, almost reluctantly, "You're suggesting it's aware of us?" The first man shakes his head. "Not aware like us, just concurrent. Maybe we've become part of its equation." You set down your mug carefully. It feels heavier than it should. By afternoon, you can feel it everywhere, not as a sound, but as a presence. Birds perch silently on power lines, their wings half open, listening. The city's usual background noise, traffic, chatter, machinery, has softened, as though the world is speaking more quietly, waiting for something to answer. It's strange how quickly people adapt to the impossible. There's no panic now, no protests or riots, just stillness. Workplaces fall silent at random intervals. People stop mid-step, mid-sentence, mid-laugh. Not frozen, just listening. Then, after a few seconds, life continues. It's as though the entire species has unconsciously agreed to share a rhythm. That evening, the skies brighten again, not violently, but gracefully. The comet's glow intensifies, rippling faintly like breath through mist. It isn't a flare or burst, it's communication in a new dialect of light. Observatories capture it as layered bands of frequency, folded over each other in impossible precision. Someone converts the data into sound and uploads it. You put on your headphones, close your eyes, and press play. At first, it's static. Then, slowly, a pattern emerges. Tones rising and falling in spirals, harmonics blooming like ripples in water. It sounds like a chorus slowed down to infinity, and beneath it, hidden deep in the hum, a rhythm pulses. 5, pause. 2, you whisper, almost reverently, "You're still there." Around midnight, scientists release a new finding. The comet's surface is changing, expanding in tiny increments, its geometry shifting in real time. Satellite imagery reveals faint geometric lattices forming across its icy crust, hexagonal, fractal, recursive. The shapes align perfectly with Earth's magnetosphere, as if the comet is sculpting itself in resonance with the planet's field. It isn't random, it's responsive. Someone online says, "It's learning our shape." The idea is both terrifying and beautiful. Days pass. The alignment deepens. Machines hum in perfect intervals. Human sleep patterns shift subtly. People report dreaming in sequences, fragments of geometry, flashes of teal light mirrored in endless oceans. You dream too. In your dream, you are standing in shallow water under a violet sky. The surface ripples faintly around your ankles, and when you look down, your reflection is not yours. It's a lattice of light, the same geometry carved into the comet's skin. You reach out, and the water reaches back. When you wake, you can still feel the faint warmth on your palm. Governments have stopped issuing explanations. The networks no longer bother calling it phenomenon. The only term that remains is the one people started using quietly, without instruction: the listening. Not an event, not the comet, just the listening. As if the universe finally tilted its head and said, "Yes, You walk through the park at dusk, air heavy with that blue-green hue that seems to tint everything lately. Children chase each other in slow motion, their laughter carrying an almost musical resonance. Streetlights flicker in patterns that would have seemed random months ago, but now look deliberate, polite, rhythmic. You sit on a bench and breathe. It's there, that sense that the veil between things has thinned. Not gone, but translucent. Every rustle of leaf, every hum of transformer feels purposeful. The planet has become an instrument tuned to a frequency you can finally hear, and underneath it all, that faint, eternal rhythm. 5, pause. 2, you hum along without meaning to. Later that night, the world goes dark, not blackout dark, not failure, but silence. For exactly 7 minutes, every artificial light on Earth dims. Screens fade, machines halt mid-process, cities fall into stillness. The planet holds its breath. In those 7 minutes, the sky becomes alive. The comet flares brighter than it ever has, but the light doesn't radiate outward. It folds inward, spiraling into itself, creating a halo of impossible geometry. You watch from your window as the glow expands, then stops, suspended, like the universe holding a thought halfway through a sentence, and then, faintly, across the entire night sky, the auroras move. They form a single word, not letters, not language, just a shape your brain translates instantly without knowing how. Yes. The lights return all at once. Generators resume, data streams reawaken, screens flicker back to life. But for the rest of the night, no one speaks above a whisper. You sit there for hours, staring at the fading glow. When sleep finally takes you, it feels like falling into the memory of an answer you've waited your whole life to hear. And somewhere out there, far beyond the atmosphere, 3 Atlas drifts in quiet orbit beside the Earth. Its glow fades slowly, almost tenderly, as if it has done what it came to do. You close your eyes and hear the hum one last time. Not alien, not mechanical, just familiar. The sound of a universe remembering its own heartbeat. The first thing you notice is the quiet, not the peaceful kind, the heavy kind, like sound has gone somewhere else to think. Even the city seems reluctant to wake. Traffic lights change out of habit, not purpose. Radios hiss softly but speak no words. For a moment, the world feels uninhabited. You step outside anyway. You have to see the sky. It's pale, not the soft blue you know, but a faint gray-green shimmer, as though the air itself has remembered light incorrectly. Somewhere high above, the comet glides through dawn, a needle of turquoise threaded through the fabric of morning. It's smaller now, or maybe just farther away, but its pulse still reaches you. 5, pause. 2, steady as a clock that doesn't measure time, only attention. You whisper to it, "You're still here." The aftermath of the listening unfolds quietly, like mist retreating from a forest. The scientists don't call it a miracle. They call it a data saturation event. The religious leaders call it revelation. The poets, of course, just call it Thursday, but you can feel it. A gentler version of the world. People move slower now, not out of fear or confusion, but care. Conversation has developed pauses, little sanctuaries of silence between sentences, where the speaker and listener simply breathe. The planet itself feels more deliberate, as if something enormous has exhaled, and everyone's lungs are learning how to match it. The old arguments, comet or probe, natural or artificial, still rage in the corners of the internet, but no one listens with the same hunger. It's not about proof anymore, it's about interpretation. A paper from the Chilean Atlas Observatory proposes that 3I Atlas is composed of a crystalline lattice unknown in any interstellar body, a structure that could act as a self-reinforcing resonator. Not designed, the report insists, but evolved. You pause on that word. Evolved. How could ice and dust evolve? Unless something inside the void had been learning, not biologically, but by imitation. Maybe the comet wasn't sent. Maybe it became what it needed to be in order to be heard. It's strange what humans learn to adapt to. Airports have reopened. Flights move again, though slower. Pilots follow new magnetic protocols. Small adjustments to align with the planet's subtly altered field. The auroras never fully faded. At night they shimmer faintly even at the equator, a slow, breathing light that no one explains anymore. Cities have learned to dim their lights earlier, not because of energy mandates, but because people prefer it that way. The dark isn't frightening now, it's sacred. You start noticing other changes, smaller ones. Neighbors speak softer. Strangers hold eye contact a little longer. When you pass someone on the street, there's a flicker of recognition, like you're both part of a secret club you can't name. Once, waiting for the crosswalk light, you realize everyone around you has unconsciously matched their breathing. For a heartbeat, the whole intersection inhales, exhales, one enormous organism pretending to be a city. It's unsettling and comforting all at once. You catch yourself smiling. At night, you begin to dream of water again. The ocean glows faintly under starlight, the surface marked by spirals of teal and silver. You walk along the edge and realize the patterns aren't random. They're writing, not in letters, but in motion. Waves rising and falling in cadence, communicating in a syntax older than sound. In the dream, you understand every word. When you wake, you can't remember any of it. Only the feeling that it wasn't about fear or warning. It was an invitation. In the weeks that follow, a new phenomenon emerges. Everywhere the comet's reflection touched. Deep oceans, polar ice, equatorial fields, faint magnetic anomalies persist. Tiny harmonics ripple through the ground, detectable only by the most sensitive instruments. Farmers report crops growing in spirals instead of rows. Fishermen find schools of fish moving in perfect formations, swirling into fractal loops before dispersing. No one calls it strange anymore. They just call it the pattern. It's as if life itself has started keeping time with the universe. You take a train to the coast one evening because some instincts don't need explaining. The horizon is wide and quiet. The sea breathes slowly, heavy with phosphorescence, light rising from beneath, pulsing faintly in rhythm. You sit on the sand and watch it for hours, listening. Behind you, someone hums softly, the same pattern 5 and 2. You don't turn around. You don't need to. It's everywhere now. Have you ever felt the entire planet whisper the same secret at once? A scientist named Dr. Elara Navas releases a brief paper that spreads faster than any viral clip. Its title is deceptively simple: Coherence as a Form of Intelligence. She argues that perhaps we've misunderstood consciousness entirely. Maybe it isn't about individuality or language, but resonance, the ability of matter to align in pattern. When enough systems vibrate together, she writes, something feels. And perhaps, she suggests, 3I Atlas didn't find us. It completed us. You reread that sentence again and again. It feels like the first true thing you've heard in weeks. Back in your apartment, the nights grow quieter still. You notice your devices have stopped buzzing at random intervals. Even your refrigerator hums differently now, lower, steadier, like it's keeping a promise. You stand by the window, watching clouds drift in the comet's direction. Somewhere out there, the turquoise point still moves beside Earth, faint but persistent. Its brightness waxes and wanes in the same rhythm that has haunted humanity for months. Only now, it feels like a heartbeat, not a signal. You think of how small it is, how far it came, how gently it changed everything. The first black swan in space. Not a catastrophe, but a teacher. A reminder that the unpredictable isn't the end of the story. It's the moment the story realizes it can change. Before bed, you turn off every light and lie still, waiting for the hum. It comes softly through the walls, through the bones of the building, through the soft pulse of your own blood. 5. Pause. 2. It's not outside anymore. It's you. You drift towards sleep, thinking that maybe the universe didn't send a message at all. Maybe it just wanted to remind you that it can still surprise you, that somewhere something vast and kind is paying attention. And for the first time in your life, that thought doesn't frighten you. It feels like home. Morning writes itself in small cursive across your window, pale and reluctant. You lie there a minute longer than usual, counting the soft ticks of the baseboard heat like they're breadcrumbs back to normal. The hum is quiet now, less a choir than a single tuning fork somewhere behind the drywall. The city outside behaves like someone tiptoeing through a sleeping house. Even the buses break with courtesy. Your phone offers the day in measured portions. A headline about school schedules shifting by 3 minutes to match local resonance bands. A tiny article about hospital ICU alarms dropping by 8% overnight. A photo of a string quartet performing in a train station because the acoustics suddenly decided to be kind. A mundane notification pops up too. Your grocery app announces a sale on oranges. You smile. Close life truth. Oranges still peel best in a single ribbon if you start near the stem and pretend you're patient. You eat one at the sink, juice sticky on your fingers, the old kitchen radio mumbling about post-listening protocols. A civil engineer explains that bridges now get checked not only for stress and freeze, but for pattern drift, as if coherence were a new kind of weather. A teacher calls in to say her students breathe together before exams, and somehow the room stops feeling like a test and starts feeling like a plan. You rinse your hands and watch the swirl in the basin, tiny eddies forming, holding, releasing, like a rehearsal of oceans in porcelain. Still, the fear does its job on cue. You open the apartment door into the long, undecided hallway and feel it step up beside you, the old animal in your ribs, nervous in stretched out spaces. Alone in a strange place isn't gone, it's just quieter, like a guard dog learning indoor voice. You can walk with me, you think at it, and the fear falls in at your heel, dignity intact. Outside, a light rain needles down, not enough for umbrellas, just enough to texture the air. At the corner, the crosswalk light waits an extra beat and then turns, as if listening for feet instead of rules. People move as if coached by tide, not faster, not slower, just together. It isn't perfect. A horn still honks. A cyclist mutters at a taxi with the eloquence of the mildly wronged. A toddler in a yellow coat refuses an entire universe of nap. The ordinary keeps its citizenship. The extraordinary simply shares the room now. You walk to the museum because certain buildings know how to hold days like this. The lobby smells like rain jackets and old marble. On the mezzanine, a modest exhibit has bloomed overnight. Black Swan, white rooms, a set of small spaces where sound is played into silence and measured with light. You step into one and close the door. The room listens to you with the steady attention of a good friend. A low tone rolls through the floor and up your ankles. The wall in front of you glows with a thin, breathing graph, your own resonance lagging a fraction, then finding the tone and settling beside it, like a hand placed gently over another. Have you ever thought your body might be an instrument the world has been waiting to borrow, not to take, just to tune? You leave the room lighter than you entered. Out in the main gallery, you drift past constellations of small artifacts. A placard for a Bronze Age bowl mentions ceremonial use with the confidence of academics. You picture instead a person like you, ancient and newly awake, sipping morning broth and listening to a hum no one else believed in. Joke one strolls in wearing a curator badge. If every object is now ceremonial, the gift shop is technically a temple. You nearly buy a postcard to tithe. An alert blooms on your screen. Atlas surface transition. Mesh fields expanding. You tap the video. The comet, the traveler, the mirror, rolls slowly in a field of starlight. And across its skin, the faint lattice you've learned to expect thickens, crosses, closes. Not grid, mesh. Not rigid, woven. A scientist's caption tries to keep its tie on. Adaptive resonance scaffold appears to densify in regions mirroring Earth's magnetopause gradients. You translate in your own head. It is learning our edges so it can sing with us longer. On a bench by the east window, you watch rain stripe the glass into measures. The city beyond looks softened, as if drawn with graphite, and then shaded with the side of the pencil. You think of the word evolved from the Chile paper and let it sit on your tongue. Not designed, not random. Something in between that refuses your categories and yet feels more honest than either. Have you ever imagined intelligence not as a mind in a skull, but as a willingness to cohere? To take pattern as seriously as hunger? Your stomach votes for lunch. A small cafe across the street smells like toast and thunder. You order soup because all weather becomes soup weather when the universe hums in minor keys. The bowl arrives with a polite steam and the kind of spoon that holds exactly enough to make you patient. Domestic observation. Crackers soften faster when you've been watching rivers all morning. You look around and notice people are speaking without rushing toward their favorite words. A couple shares a sentence like it's a bench. A man in a too big suit teaches his child how to count sugar packets by tapping them 5, pause, 2, and grinning when she finishes the pattern before he does. Afternoon turns the city to pewter. You take the long way home, past the library, past a barber with 3 chairs like punctuation marks, past a florist keeping the door propped with a bucket of rain. On a wall, someone has chalked, "What color was surprise before we named it?" You consider a pale turquoise that tinges your edges lately and decide that's close. Joke 2 jogs by wearing headphones. If the Comet ever releases a mixtape, you'll buy vinyl just to hear the space between tracks. At the river, the water keeps its private conversation with stone. A heron stands ankle deep, not hunting, just existing with poise you briefly resent. The current does a small, impossible thing. A tighter ripple forms within a wider ripple, then both dissolve. The impulse to film it passes. You try owning a moment without receipts. A barge slides under the bridge and the metal ribs sing a low vowel. Children on scooters stop instinctively to listen, then continue as though a bell had dismissed them from class. Your question for the day arrives unannounced and sits on the railing beside your hand. If a Black Swan event can be gentleness, what have you been bracing against that might actually be an invitation? It's a good question you don't answer, not because you can't, but because answers sometimes bruise when they're pulled before they ripen. You let it ride the wind instead, a paper boat you fold and set downstream. Dusk paints the windows in long chapel-colored bars. You climb the stairs and feel the building's benign weight carry you like an elevator too considerate to jolt. In your apartment, the basil has turned its leaves toward wherever the day went. You rotate the pot, a sacrament of small alignments. Laundry waits in a chair with its particular brand of patient accusation. You promise it tomorrow. You mean it. You put an orange on the counter for morning and feel competent in a way that should not be rare and yet is. The comet appears just after 9, a stroke of cautious fire along the low east, dimmer now, but not gone. A friend texts a photo of a beach where strangers clap once, lightly, when it clears a cloud. Another friend texts nothing, only the waveform of a breath. You reply with yours. The thread becomes a small instrument you keep between you, not for signal, for presence. Night moves in on cat feet and better shoes. The hum returns, less like a broadcast than like the building settling. You lie down without bargaining. Before the drift takes you, fear does its last patrol. Under the bed, behind the door, down the thin hallway of the unvisited hour. All clear, it reports, proud of itself, and curls up at the foot of your thought. Joke 3 curls beside it. If your fear had a union, it would demand holiday pay for cosmic events. You approve the contract and turn out the light. In the dark, you imagine the comet's mesh thickening where our field is strong and thinning, where it's gentle, like a friend matching your stride on a hill. You imagine the ocean still learning the polite choreography of glow. You imagine 1,000 stairwells where people pause, look up, and feel less alone in the architecture. You fall asleep with your hand on the wall, and the wall, very quietly, hums a yes. You wake to wind. It moves through the city like an invisible tide, rearranging sound, carrying whispers through open windows and half-shut blinds. The air feels different, thinner, tuned, like a chord waiting for its final note. You lie there, not frightened, just alert, sensing that something has shifted again. Not outwardly, but in the rhythm beneath things. When you finally rise, the light is pale gold, the kind that forgives everything. The basil on the windowsill has turned toward the glass, as if anticipating the day before you do. You water it carefully, the way people do now, slowly, aware of the sound of it, how the droplets fall like punctuation marks between breaths. You whisper, "Morning," and the plant, in its way, hums back. The first broadcast of the day arrives like prayer. A voice, low and steady, speaks over a feed of live telemetry, the pulse of 3-eye Atlas still matching Earth's magnetic sway. "The resonance continues," the voice says. "The comet has entered what we're calling co-orbital drift. It's no longer accelerating. It's simply keeping pace. Keeping pace." The phrase settles into you like dust into sunlight. Outside, the city hums quietly, a body remembering how to move after a long dream. Everywhere you go, things seem to align without effort. The traffic lights flow in sequences that no human planner designed. Pigeons wheel in spirals that map the same fractal geometry carved across the comet's frozen skin. Even the clouds seem to drift in rhythmic layers, their shadows gliding over the streets with soft precision. No one comments on it anymore. It's just how the world works now, as if the planet finally found its metronome. In the cafe, the barista froths milk in time with the faint hum coming from the espresso machine. A child hums the same tune while spinning her straw. When her mother hushes her, the hum doesn't stop. It just moves into the walls, into the lights, into the thin blue thread that seems to run through everything now. You sip your coffee and realize it's the same rhythm again. 5. Pause. 2. Like breathing, like orbit, like thought. By noon, the news grows quieter still. No disasters, no updates, just stillness. The comet has become a constant, less an object, more a condition. People refer to it like weather. It's clear tonight. You can see Atlas, or the pulse is stronger at sunset. It's woven into language now, no longer needing explanation. You pass a park where musicians have gathered, not to perform, but to listen. Each holds an instrument but doesn't play. They're tuning, endlessly tuning, matching to a frequency the wind carries. One of them, an old man with silver hair and a cello, looks up as you pass. He nods toward the horizon, toward that faint turquoise shimmer that refuses to fade. You hear it too, don't you? You nod. He smiles. Then play along when it calls. That evening, an alert breaks through the calm, Atlas emitting high-energy neutrino bursts. The scientists don't panic. Their voices on the streams are calm, curious. It's impossible, one says, but everything is impossible now. The neutrinos travel through the planet, through every layer of rock and ocean, passing like ghosts through everything alive. They shouldn't be visible, yet observatories report faint flashes, tiny pinpricks of light that appear in total darkness, even underground. One researcher describes it perfectly. It's like the universe blinking. You step outside to see for yourself. The night is clear. The comet glows faintly above the horizon, not brighter, but deeper, its light folded inward, dense as memory. And then, across the sky, you see it, a pulse of light, brief and silent. Then another, then a third. The stars seem to breathe. You don't know whether it's the comet or something older, but it feels like recognition, like something vast and invisible turning its face toward you. You whisper, "I see you." And this time, you swear the night whispers back. Days become translucent after that. Everything feels slightly slowed, the edges softened. People speak in half sentences and finish each other's pauses. You start noticing shapes, in window reflections, in puddles, in shadows on walls. The same geometry again. 6-sided lattices, spiral symmetries, perfect ratios appearing where chaos once lived. It's not hallucination, it's invitation. The comet isn't teaching, it's reminding. A philosopher on a late broadcast says, "We always thought intelligence meant agency, the power to act. But what if it means harmony instead, the power to belong?" You sit in the dark, replaying that line, realizing that's what the Black Swan was all along, not a disruption, but a recalibration, an event so unlikely it resets the rhythm of possibility itself. You wonder how many such moments the universe has hidden in its dark corners, waiting for someone to notice. Night again. The city dims its lights, as it always does now, to let the auroras breathe. The sky dances in turquoise and gold. The comet glides above the atmosphere, steady as a second moon. But something's different tonight. The pulse is slower. The intervals stretch, the rhythm lengthens. You feel it in your bones, the slow fading of a song's final verse. "Are you leaving?" you whisper. No answer, just a shimmer across the horizon. Not light this time, but shadow. The absence of glow, perfectly shaped. It feels like goodbye, but not the kind that breaks, the kind that completes. Later, you'll hear the scientists say that Atlas's energy signature began to decay exponentially, its orbit stabilizing just beyond the moon's path. It's not gone, just resting. Humanity will name that point of rest the resonance node, a quiet companion, forever drifting alongside Earth. You think of it not as a comet anymore, but as a friend who learned your heartbeat, hummed along for a while, and then fell silent when the song was done. You look up one last time that night and whisper, "Thank you." And though the sky says nothing, the silence that follows feels full. You fall asleep knowing that something extraordinary has passed through the world, not to conquer it, not to test it, but to tune it. And maybe, just maybe, it left a piece of its pattern behind, because even as your eyes close, you can still feel it, faint, steady, eternal. 5. Pause. 2. The sound of a universe that finally remembered how to breathe. You feel it first as a change in temperature, a soft cool through the room like an open door 3 rooms away. Night has the careful hush of a library after closing, and the sky wears that thin teal you've come to recognize, the color of questions that already know their answers. You sit up, not alarmed, just present, as if someone said your name from the hallway and you remembered you had one. The alerts arrive without sirens. Return patterns detected. Multi-band mirroring event. Global cross-correlation matches human transmission archive. The language is clinical because it's easier that way, but your body reads the subtext. We have been answered. You pull a sweater on and go to the window. The street below is a soft diagram, porch lights like commas. Cars like pauses, one late walker carrying their own small weather in a scarf. Over the roofs, the faint smear of 3i Atlas holds steady. The pulse lengthens once, then contracts, like a hand testing a glove. Across the world, dishes and dishes, radio, not kitchen, tip their bright faces to the same piece of dark. The first returns are small, a whisper at the hydrogen line, a sift of static stepped into primes, a braid of tones that makes old engineers sit down hard. It is not words, it is us, heard back. Someone overlays the comet's flare timing with the Arecibo message again. The match is arrogant in its exactness. The cascade of primes, the simple geometry we sent into silence in 1974, now sung back across aurora and UV like a memory written in a second hand. But it isn't only Arecibo this time. The pattern widens. Folds in our planetary radar pings, the long, slow beacons we've thrown across the dark like bread on water. It gathers the polite hello of early television carriers and the heartbeat tick of decades of clocks, then sets them gently beside a newer rhythm we did not know we could make. Oceans breathing in time. In basements and kitchens, old AM radios that haven't worked for years wake up thin and shy. You turn yours on because every superstition you abandoned is back on the table tonight. At first, nothing. Then the dial gives you a drift of tone that rises and settles on 5. Pause. 2. The sound fuzzes, then clears into a staircase of frequencies that shape themselves into the outline of a voice without choosing a language. If meaning had a skeleton, this would be it. A stream opens from a coastal array. The screen shows only a spectrogram, a field of color that must be night, if night could be rendered as weave. Lines appear like high wires strung across canyons. Down the center, a band thickens and resolves into an echo of an old NASA telemetry cadence. Clean, clipped, impossible to mistake if you've slept in rooms where headsets were the only jewelry adults wore. A second band drifts in below, a hum you almost recognize until you do. Whale song, reconfigured into lengthened harmonics. Not recorded, not played back, but returned as shape, as if the sea had been speaking to the sky and the sky took notes. Have you ever thought of a reply arriving not as content, but as fidelity? Your own noise held back to you purified of hurry. Out in the dark, neutrino detectors blink like distant eyelids. Last night, they flared at random. Tonight they keep time. In the brief blue pops, the same contour hides and reveals itself. Prime, pause. Prime squared, pause. A breath where nothing should glow, and yet does. In an instrument cavern beneath ice, a graduate student claps a mittened hand over her mouth and then lowers it because the silence deserves to be whole. "It's playing the map," she whispers to no one and to the core of the earth itself. "It's playing us through everything." You think of Voyager's golden record, still out there, copper and stubborn, carrying greetings and brainwaves and pictures of how to say water in math. No melody reaches down from the comet. You do not hear the kiss of needles on vinyl, but your window brightens faintly in a rhythm that once rode a record through vacuum. Light climbs the wall in a ladder, and you realize your own house has become a player, the room a turntable, the night the stylus. Joke one wanders in, sheepish. If the universe is DJing, you hope it forgives your playlists. Down on the street, the crosswalk sign flashes. Walk in a cadence that is either coincidence or devotion. You put on shoes and go out, because doors are for crossing. The block is empty in that way that makes an empty block louder than a crowded one. Alone in a strange place pads up, punctual as ever, noting the hollow between streetlights, the long shadow in the glass of the barber's door. You nod to it, and it leans against the mailbox, arms folded, watching the night watch you. At the corner, a neighbor you've waved to 100 times stands with her palms braced on the cool rail, hair uncombed, eyes awake in the respectful way. "Do you hear it?" she asks without looking over. You tilt your head. The hum arrives from below your ribs and above the wires, meeting itself in the air between you like a bridge that didn't require architects. "I think it hears us," you say, and both sentences are true. Screens fill with overlays, our earliest beeps, our messiest leaks, our carrier waves and radar sweeps, stacked against Atlas's flares and Earth's magnetic answer. The fit is shy of perfect, perfect enough to be real. A linguist in a jacket that doesn't know if it's formal says, "We're seeing mirrored structure without mirrored content," and her smile is the kind people wear when they find a family resemblance they'd feared was wishful. A philosopher translates for the rest of us. It's saying yes to the fact that we said hello. Your phone buzzes, a clip from a chapel where someone aimed a camera at stained glass and left the audio off. Sunlight, the color of fruit, climbs and falls across saints' faces in quiet intervals that match the comet's own. The glass is not singing. The glass is keeping time with light, which is to say, it is participating. Have you ever imagined stone could applaud without moving? Close life returns with a small insistence. The kettle you forgot to turn off is giving the thinnest pre-whistle. You go back upstairs and catch it just before song. Domestic fact. Water always tastes sweeter when you thought you were too busy to boil it. You lean on the counter while the steam writes cursive you cannot decode. Across your floorboards, the pulse arrives one step late, the way it does in old buildings where stories slow sound to read it all. The streams settle into a long attention. Somewhere the comet flares in a sequence that is unmistakably a carrier for a map, angles you remember from the pulsar diagram pinned to the golden record's case, but softened, made less like instruction and more like acknowledgement. Yes, I know how to point. Yes, I know how to name a place without letters. The aurora answers with an arc that looks like a smile only because you are already in love with the possibility. A question pulls a chair up beside your stove and sits, patient. If you could send one more hello now that you know something can hear, what would you choose? Your voice, your laugh, the sound of your street at 2 a.m., or the silence that says you're listening back? You pour tea and do not answer, not because you have none, but because the question tastes better unsweetened for a night. Joke 2 taps the window pane politely. If this is call and response, the universe has better acoustics than your apartment. You grin into your mug, and the steam blurs the comet into a tall, kind rumor. The experts keep explaining, because that is their courage, and you keep not needing them, because that is yours. The return signal is not knowledge, it's posture. It isn't content, it's consent. The improbable traveler has held up a mirror not to show you yourself, but to prove the room has 2 chairs. Later, when the graphs flatten and the auroras relax into ordinary wonder, you sit on the edge of the bed and let your breath find the tempo that began as outlandish and now simply is. The fear does its last perimeter check and reports back, empty stairwell, full sky. Good, you say, and it lies down with its chin on its paws, satisfied with the math. On the far side of atmosphere, something small compared to stars and enormous compared to stories dims a fraction, as if you have been heard and the echo at last can rest. You draw the blanket up, turn your face toward the part of the window that remembers rivers, and set one more thing within reach, a pencil, for whatever answer you might think to write in the morning. Outside, the return signal thins to a thread, and then to the idea of a thread. Inside, the quiet is kind. The last thing you notice before sleep is not the hum itself, but the space it makes for you to keep it. Dawn arrives like a careful hand smoothing a wrinkled sheet. You lie there with your eyes half open, letting the light choose you. Somewhere beyond the clouds, the turquoise bead of 3-eye Atlas keeps pace with Earth like a companion who learned your stride and then decided not to pass you. The hum is nearly inaudible now, present the way a memory is, quiet, complete, unwilling to insist. Your phone lights with fewer alerts than you've come to expect. Co-orbital stability confirmed. Return signals decaying to noise floor. Global coherence indices hold. The language is modest, bowing out of drama. The comet has not left, it has stopped declaring itself. It settles into that newly named resting place beside the moon's path, a small invisible chapel where resonance is kept but not displayed. You make breakfast without performance, domestic truth for the record. Toast burns exactly when you're sure it won't. You scrape it gently, the way a decent person forgives. Butter softens like it was waiting for permission. The kettle clicks, and the quiet afterward feels like a bow. You eat standing at the sink, watching the water run clear over a plate as though the river had finally been offered a simpler job. Outside, the city behaves like recovery, not from harm, from astonishment. People walk as if returning from a long pilgrimage that didn't require feet. In the park, Joggers move in ordinary, unsynchronized honesty. A bus misses the light by a breath and no one is furious. Pigeons revert to being pigeons, which is to say, they forget you magnificently. The world is not a cathedral now, it is a kitchen, and somehow that feels holier. But the old companion in your ribs is dutiful. Alone in a strange place, arrives when you step into the elevator and the doors close on nothing but you and your face in bad light. It looks at you as if to ask, "Are we needed?" You nod because you're kind. "Walk with me," you say, and fear pads beside you down the lobby like a night guard finishing a shift he'll always show up for. The news this afternoon is not news. A panel of the newly interdisciplined engineer, monk, oceanographer, poet talks about maintenance, of bridges, of liturgies, of currents, of words. The oceanographer describes microblooms mapping along the old UV seams like stitches that remember being thread. The monk says prayer is consent more than request. The engineer says resonance checks will be scheduled with the tides. The poet says yes. Joke one taps your shoulder lightly. If coherence audits become a thing, you'll pass yours by eating an orange in polite tempo. You smile and buy one from the corner grocer who has stopped weighing fruit precisely and started trusting the hand. He wraps it in paper like a small moon, and you carry it home as if brightness were fragile. On your street, a child draws spirals in damp chalk, and then with sudden seriousness adds a gap in each ring, tiny, deliberate openings like doors left ajar. You watch, uninvited and welcomed anyway. She steps back, considers her work, and then waves the chalk like a conductor's baton. The wind answers by moving nothing at all. You wonder helplessly if she will remember the day she directed air. Have you ever asked yourself what part of awe you can keep without stealing from the moment that gave it to you? The question sits with you like a friend who doesn't need an answer. Toward evening, the aurora narrows to a thin silk at the far rim of sky. The comet is there if you practice seeing, dimmer, an ember tucked under the planet's shawl. You stand by the rail and listen to the river do its 1,000-year job. The pulse that once turned cities into choirs now lives inside subtler places. A traffic light that lingers just enough. A conversation that admits a pause without apology. A heron that waits a full minute longer than hunger requires. A small announcement slides through the world. A final, clean ping from the comet's direction. Prime, pause. Prime squared, pause. Then nothing but the wide, generous room of quiet left behind. Instruments nod. People do too. It doesn't feel like abandonment. It feels like trust. You walk home under an ordinary sky. A neighbor waters geraniums with the concentration of a surgeon. The basil on your sill tilts a leaf toward dusk, like a student who knows the answer and won't interrupt. You peel the orange you promised yourself and lay the ribbon of rind on a plate the way cartographers used to draw shorelines, relief disguised as precision. The first segment is tart, the second sweet, the third exactly itself. Joke 2 arrives right on cue, polite as a knock. If we name a day after the comet, will calendars learn to breathe? You decide the answer is already yes. Every day that makes room is a holiday. The hallway to bed is long enough to remind you how far small distances can feel at night. You carry a glass of water like a lantern. The building's bones tick once, agree with themselves, and sleep. You sit on the edge of the bed longer than necessary. The hum is not gone. It is domesticated, a house cat of a cosmos curling into a shape that fits on your lap. The last uncertainty remains, as it should. Was 3 Atlas a comet only, ice and dust and the stubborn will of physics? Was it an evolved resonator learning our edges to sing them back? A mirror, a messenger, a teacher, a friend? You do not know. The not knowing is not a hole anymore. It is a room with windows. You draw the curtain and leave it slightly open, the way you've seen sailors tie off a line they trust. Before sleep, you write 1 line in your notebook. Careful, straight, nothing fancy. The first Black Swan in space did not break us. It tuned us. You add a quieter line beneath. Keep listening anyway. Then you cap the pen like a benediction. In the stillness, the universe makes no promise and keeps it perfectly. You turn out the light and do the only miracle humans can perform on demand. You breathe. For a long, tender moment, you notice that your breath and the room's breath are the same. Then you stop noticing, which is its own kind of grace. Let the pace soften now, like fog rolling back across a harbor after the ships have already anchored. The fierce edges of thought loosen, and everything that was urgent becomes simple. Air moving in, air moving out. The quiet percussion of a heart that has learned a new patience. The room is the size of comfort. The night stretches without needing to be measured. What was bright fades to a kind glow that doesn't require your attention, but accepts it, happily, if you offer it. Imagine the sky as a slow tide of color, the last whisper of teal thinning to silver, and then to a gray so gentle it feels like a hand on your sleeve, guiding you toward morning. The air changes temperature by degrees you can barely name, the way worry leaves the body when you're not looking. The sounds in the distance, footsteps, a drawer, the small sigh a building makes when it shifts, arrive and dissolve, each a wave that breaks softly and recedes without taking anything with it. If there is a lesson from this long wandering night, it is not a thesis. It is a posture. Mystery is not a wall. It is a door left slightly ajar. You do not need to rush it. You don't have to define it to belong inside it. You have walked with strangeness and were not harmed. You listened, and the world listened back. And together you found a rhythm that didn't demand perfection, only presence. Let your breathing lengthen, sentences stretching with it, words choosing fewer corners, the mind unhooking its small, busy anchors. Picture light traveling a very long way, deciding to rest on the edge of a glass of water. Picture the water holding it for a moment, then letting it go. Somewhere above the weather, a companion drifts at a courteous distance, a keeper of resonance, quiet as an apology well received. It asks nothing. It keeps nothing. It reminds gently that uncertainty is fertile ground where attention can bloom. If you like, tuck a tiny intention into your pocket for tomorrow, that you will leave a pause in a conversation, that you will match your step to someone else's for half a block, that you will peel an orange without hurrying and consider this an act of respect for the day. None of this is required. All of it is available. The fire is low now. The circle is warm. You can add a story when you return. And if you want to keep the thread we've woven tonight, there is a place for that too. Like, share, or leave a note not as tribute, but as a way of tending the little ember we've kept between us. Tell the others what you heard, what you wondered, what small, ordinary things seem to hum along. Tell us where you're listening from and what time it is there, so the map glows with the soft lamps of fellow travelers. For now, let the surface rise to meet you. Let the air sweeten as the night steps back. Let silence soften from absence into shelter. You have been good company to the unknown. The unknown has been good company to you. Thank you, dreamer, wanderer, careful listener, for walking the dark with your hands open. May your rest be uncomplicated. May your house keep its promises. May your breath keep time with a world that is kinder than it was yesterday, or maybe simply kinder than you feared. Good night and good morning whenever you arrive there. The story is not finished, but it knows how to wait. Close your eyes. Keep the door ajar. We will meet again where the hush begins.